Sorry, some of you can't see me back there because the podium is so high. But you're lucky. How's the volume back there now? Good, good, okay. Well, thank you all for being here. If the wind blows these things away, I would just add a little bit. And I'll probably end up repeating half a dozen things that Ed just said because they're so important and need to be reiterated. But as we dedicate this plaque today to these 13 very special heroes that you see the names of up here, I'm honored beyond words just to be standing here representing the hundreds of pilots that Ed talked about in the Super Sabre Society that we all flew the F-100 and defended our country for over 40 years. Thank you, General Latendra, Dean, General Moga, Com, for being here today. And a very special welcome to these cadet leaders that you see seated back here in their fatigues. And many of us know what you're going through this past couple of weeks, and you've only got a couple more days before these young, I call them plebes, show up and walk across the terrazzo and fall into your care. And I admire you. I wish I could do it again with you. Thank you for doing it. We have another very special guest with us here today, Colonel P.K. Robinson, class of 1962, the Air Force Academy. P.K. had his first combat tour in Vietnam flying F-100s in 67 and 68 out of a place that I'm very familiar with, Tui Wa. And that wasn't good enough for P.K. He had to volunteer to go back and fly as a Mistyfac to Phuket. And then he finishes his tour as a Mistyfac at Phuket. And you heard Eddie mention Mistyfac 2 or 3 times. And for those of you in the audience that aren't familiar with the term Mistyfac, please at the reception have PK and Don, and I think we've got one other Mistyfac in here. Yeah, there he is. Back up here, Charlie. Just feel free to share your thoughts about Mistyfac to the members of the audience that aren't familiar with it. I will just say that it became one of the highest risk missions that we flew in Southeast Asia. And of course that again wasn't enough for PK. He volunteers to go back again flying the F-4 about 4 years later. And PK was shot down over North Vietnam, captured, and went to prison. He served as a POW for 270 days, released in March of 1973. After that, PK served in key leadership positions in the Air Force for 15 years. PK, thank you so much for being here with us today. Just to be standing here in this beautiful Memorial Plaza, and we've all been relishing in it. I had to come out here yesterday just to see and touch and feel because I hadn't seen it since I was here before. I have such a wonderful feeling of pride, but at the same time, an immense feeling of sorrow. Very mixed, but very true. And I'm extremely proud to have flown with, served with, many Air Force Academy graduates. Unfortunately, many of names are on plaques throughout this Memorial Plaza. And we all sincerely regret the losses of these outstanding men. We have to wonder what many of them would have achieved, what they would have contributed to this country. Excuse me, that's going to happen to me a couple of times today. If they hadn't sacrificed their lives for this country. But one thing positive, we all got to remember, they all died doing what they loved. They all died doing what they volunteered for. And they all died doing what they were committed to. And I can think of no better tribute than that. President Coolidge once said it eloquently, "The nation which forgets its offenders will itself be forgotten. Today, we're here to remember and pay tribute to those who went in harm's way. At this point, I've got to take time. Ed already did, but I want to reiterate. The man who's been the brains and energy behind this plaque for almost 2 years. I know he doesn't want the praise. He'll beat the heck out of me after this is over, but that's happened before. And I've got to say, Roger, please stand, and thank you very much. Roger, class of 1967, Air Force Academy, flew the F-100 in Vietnam, and Roger and I flew a couple of airplanes together after that. This would not have been possible without your leadership, Roger. And Shawnee, seated behind Roger, thank you, and so glad you're here today. As we look at the names on this F-100 Super Sabre plaque, I'd like to add a few comments to expand on who they were and what they did. I'll start with the eldest of the group, Captain Mike Hyde, class of 1960. We're extremely pleased that his daughter, Kristen, her husband, Russell Shaw, are with us today. Thank you again. Mike had the opportunity to play professional baseball with the Chicago Cubs, but chose the Air Force Academy instead, and we're sure glad he did. Obviously, he was heavily influenced by his father, a World War II flight instructor, but Mike loved speed. He loved fast cars, he loved fast airplanes, and didn't a lot of us. While stationed in the United Kingdom following pilot training, Mike and his wife Ann enjoyed traveling all over Europe. Unfortunately, Mike died in December 1966 when his aircraft was hit by enemy fire while flying a close air support mission, and you'll hear that term a couple of times today too, in Quinoa province. Mike left behind his wife, 2 young daughters, Kristen and Gina. His remains were recovered in 1990, and he's buried here at the Academy. Class of 1962 lost 4 members flying the F-100 in Vietnam. First loss from the class was Lieutenant Don Watson on July 31st, 1965. Don was bombing a target just north of Saigon. When he was hit, his F-100 exploded. He had absolutely no chance to eject. Don grew up in Tripoli, Wisconsin. He was not married. He is also buried here at the Academy. The second loss for the class of 62 came just 4 months later. Lieutenant Don Hauschild served as an enlisted man prior to coming to the Academy. He was an outstanding student in law. He excelled in pilot training, as most of these guys did, and selected the F-100 as their airplane after pilot training. He was flying a close air support mission just northeast of Tuiwa when he was hit by small arms fire and crashed. John was from Chicago, Illinois. He was not married. He is buried here at the Air Force Academy. The third member of the class of 62 to be killed was Captain Larry Moore. He was also performing a close air support mission south of Saigon on July 12th, 1967. Larry was hit by automatic weapons fire. His F-100 caught fire and he crashed. Larry was from Huntington, Oregon. He was married to Carolyn. They had a son, Michael, and a daughter, Beth. Larry is buried here at the Air Force Academy. The fourth member of the class of 1962 to die in Vietnam was Captain Jim Brinkman. He was also lost flying a close air support mission northwest of Saigon in War Zone Charlie on April 1st, 1968. And I hope that term, War Zone Charlie, hits true with a lot of you. It became known as one of the most dangerous areas in Vietnam for the duration of the war. Jim was from Memphis, Tennessee, and New Orleans. He was not married, and he is buried here at the Air Force Academy. The class of 1963 lost 3 men flying the F-100 in Vietnam. The first member of the class of 63 to die in Vietnam flying the Super Sabre was First Lieutenant John Scoro. At the academy, he was captain of the fencing team and an All-American. The award each year to the best fencer here at the academy is named after John. John was attacking a target north of Phuket, September 13, 1966, when his F-100 was hit and crashed. John was from Gary, Indiana. He was married to Betty. John is buried here at the Air Force Academy. The second member of the class of 1963 who was killed was Captain Clarence Joe Himmel. Joe's son Joe and his wife Kelly are with us here today. Thank you all so much for being here. Joe was known as Boo Boo here at the Academy. Joe was an outstanding football player and lacrosse player. On October 21st, 1967, his F-100 was hit while on a mission 30 miles southeast of Da Nang. You'll hear that word again. The aircraft then flew low out over the ocean, and the FAC reported a fireball. It was suspected Joe was wounded and had no chance to communicate or eject. His body was never recovered. Joe was married to Jane, and they had two sons, Clarence Joe Jr. and Jeffrey. Joe was born and raised in the Ozarks. According to his wife and sons, his priorities were faith, family, and flying. He also had aspirations of becoming a test pilot and an astronaut. Joe is memorialized here at the Academy. The last member of the class of 63 to die flying the F-100 in Vietnam was Captain Tom Clark. On February 8, 1969, while on a mission to destroy an anti-aircraft gun position on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, what a mission, near Ban Cape, Laos, his F-100 Super Sabre was hit by 23 millimeter ground fire, and he crashed before he was able to get out of the airplane. Tom's remains were not recovered until October 2009. He had been posthumously promoted to major. Tom was from Emporia, Pennsylvania, married to his high school sweetheart, Kathleen. He's buried in Emporia, Pennsylvania. Major Laurent Lee Gorley was the only loss in the class of 66. Lee died on August 9, 1969, while flying as a Misty Pack. Lee's sister, Alzine, his brother, Fred's wife, Chris, are with us today. It is so nice all of you could be here, all family members. Thank you. Lee was a country boy. Grew up on a farm near a small town in Iowa. He was a distinguished graduate of the Air Force Academy and attended Purdue after graduation, obtaining an MS degree in astronautics. At pilot training, Lee was the outstanding graduate and again selected the F-100 for his first flying assignment. All these men volunteers. Lee was serious about his role as a pilot, fully understood the high levels of risk involved when he volunteered for the Misty Pack role. Lee's remains were returned in December 2011, were not identified until August 2012. He's buried next to his father in Iowa. I must mention that Lee's brother Fred also flew combat missions in Southeast Asia in the F-4 after Lee was killed. Class of 1968 lost 2 members in Vietnam. I'm going to have a tough time getting through this one. Very tragic accident. Lieutenant Mike Caudill, Lieutenant Charlie Collenberg, both of the class of 68 were passengers on a C-123 en route to Cam Bay on November 29, 1970, where they were to board a Freedom flight back to the United States. They had completed their tours of duty flying the F-100. When the C-123 they were in crashed in weather, killing 16 of the 18 aboard. Mike was on the Dean's list here at the Air Force Academy all 4 years and was also on the football and track team. He was an excellent F-100 pilot. Charlie was an outstanding cadet and an outstanding fighter pilot. He will always be remembered for his enthusiasm, vigor, and dedication. I knew Charlie Collenberg very well at Tuiwa. Most of us at Tuiwa had completed our tours and flown back in the F-100 to England Air Force Base, Louisiana. Charlie and about 20 others went to Phan Rang to complete their tours for the next 2 or 3 months. And the day Mike and Charlie were killed, England Air Force Base shut down. We were shocked. We expected to see them home in about 3 days. 2 F-100 pilots, Hayden Lockhart, Jr., class of 61, and Guy Gruters, class of 1964, names are on this plaque also, and rightly so. Like P.K. Robinson, both were POWs held in various camps in North Vietnam. Hayden was the first Air Force Academy graduate to become a POW very early on in the war. He was shot down and captured March 2nd, 1965, and released February 12th, 1973. Try to comprehend that. Guy became a POW in December 1967 and was released in March of 1973. Now you heard Ed Bracken speak earlier about Captain Lance Saigon, prisoner of war and Medal of Honor recipient. Captain Guy Gruters was also shot down flying as a Misty Pack and became Lance's roommate. Guy cared for Lance every day until Lance succumbed to wounds and torture and died. Guy, his testimony following his release as a POW was a key factor in Lance Saigon being awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. All these men died doing something they loved and for a country that they were proud to serve. Maybe that provides solace for those left behind. Family, friends, classmates, fellow pilots. As noted on your brochure, all gave some gave all. It captures the essence of all of us who served in Southeast Asia, especially the 11 graduates who did not return. It's now time to unveil our F-100 Super Sabre plaque.
We toast our hardy comrades who have fallen from the skies and were gently caught by God's hand to be with him on high, to dwell among the soaring clouds they have known so well before, from victory roll to tail chase at heaven's door. As we fly among them there, we're sure to heed their plea to take care, my friend, watch your six, and do one more roll for me. And that was written by Commander Jerry Coffey in Illinois in 1968. And now if you'll turn to the wall, and those of you that are close may want to move back a little bit so that you can see the plaque unveiling from Tom.